Hello, and welcome to another episode of The End of the Search. This one I call it Resonance May Not Necessarily Be Truth. What do I mean by that? A lot of times I may hear people saying, yeah, that person is telling the truth because I resonate with it. There's a resonance there. Well, the resonance we're speaking here is not the intellectual resonance, is not a personal resonance, is more like the peace in which we rest, and that is universal, that is absolute, that is not pertaining to some people and not to others. If you notice, for example, cults, they resonate, but they resonate because they have a belief system that they share. But beliefs are not truth, because beliefs has opposites. Truth is absolute. When you listen to these videos, for example, and there may be some resonance, I'm not asking you to believe anything I say, because that put me in a position of authority. And the only authority is God. Okay? And that God is what you are in essence. Not as a human experience, but in essence, that will be the ultimate or the only authority. So, the resonance here is that your experience dictates if what is being shared here is true or not. What do I mean by that? All that is being shared in these videos is that if you don't believe the content of the mind, you rest in direct experience, in the direct experience of being. And this is not something that you put into practice so that you as a person, as a human being, say, okay, if I don't believe the content of my thoughts, I can experience peace or I'll be okay. Well, remember that the idea of a person is also a thought. But you cannot deny the direct experience, which is beingness right now. You cannot deny that, which is the background, which is what is. That can never be denied. That's life itself. That is not a belief. You cannot say I'm not alive. You cannot say that I am not. You cannot say that I'm not being. That is impossible because it's the experience. Anything that the minds interpret, however, is overshadowing the background. So, right now, this is it. This is life. That's just life. It's just what it is. Notice how thoughts appear in it. If you do not believe the thoughts, if you don't believe the content of the thoughts, what you rest is in beingness. This is not a peace that is temporary, or a tranquility where things are going my way, or the thoughts that I have I do like or so, because if you like these thoughts or don't like the other ones, which there's nothing right or wrong with that, but that's still a judgment. You see, I'm pointing to a neutrality that is, and this always. When this is seen, you live life from that recognition, from that space that, again, is not you who live it, but we're trying to do the best we can with words which are limitations by themselves. And then no matter what happens, you see, cannot have an effect on the background, on the peace that you are. Yes, the experience or the human experience, there will be pleasure, there will be pain, because this is just part of the dynamic of this experience, seemingly. But there will be no suffering. You see, there will be peace in the midst of anything. And this is not a this is not a resonance that you talk about it. This is your direct experience. And that's why we say, just put it to the test. Notice that in every circumstance, if you find yourself reacting to anything, again, I'm not saying that if you have a hand on top of a stove, you're not going to pull it away. I mean, that's just part of the natural reaction, part of the conditioning of the human experience. You run away from pain, and there's a tendency to seek pleasure. But psychologically speaking, the seeking of pleasure is trying to avoid the sense, the emptiness that we feel when we believe we're this separate entity. So the seeking of pleasure give me something to do, you see, but we're going beyond that. This is not about avoiding pain and seeking pleasure. This is about beingness. And when you're being, because you're not identified with the thoughts, there's nothing to pursue. And if pursuing something happens, you see it as a natural, organic movement, not something you do because you're experienced or you just want any particular result. You just do it for the joy of doing it, because that is all that there is in the direct experience. You see? So when you begin to stop believing the content of the mind, there is a direct experience. That is a peace, and that's the resonance that we're referring to in these videos. I'm saying, notice if you can rest in the peace, which is the background that we're talking about, the peace that passes all understanding, in spite whether there's pain or pleasure. And if there's no psychological suffering, that's the resonance I am pointing to. You see, because a lot of times when there's a tendency of thinking that if what that person is saying, I resonate with it because, again, it's a belief system, then what I'm finding myself is looking for those who are saying what I want to hear. You see? We don't want anyone to say what I don't want to hear, but paradoxically, that which you don't want to hear is the path to freedom, because it's breaking down all our belief systems, all of it, until it gets to the core, which is the belief I am a separate entity, I am a separate individual, this is who I am. But you see, when I say I'm a separate individual, I'm a separate entity, this is who I am, I'm overlooking that these are thoughts. These are just basically descriptions. But that's not what I really am. What I really am is beyond description. It's the background. It's what is. And that is permanent, that never changes. The body changes, thoughts changes, sensations changes, all of that changes. But what I am doesn't change. See, this is what we're pointing to here, and this is experience. This is not a belief. This is direct experience always. Now notice, put it to the test. Notice what happens in every single situation when you find yourself reacting or responding. Notice that you're not reacting or responding to the situation. You're reacting or responding to your own thoughts. Your thoughts interpret the situation, you're reacting to your own interpretation. So if the interpretation was not there, if you were not believing the thought, what would be left? You see? This is not theory. This is direct experience. When you begin to live from that space, then you live in the peace that passes all understanding, and no matter what comes your way, you're fine with it. It cannot shake your foundation. And this is not intellectual resonance. This is not you're saying, oh, I resonate with you because I think this way or I believe that. No. It's the resonance of beingness. You see? It's your experience. It's direct experience, always. As you move through this seeming world of appearances, you notice that the mind is always interpreting, translating everything that happens. Well, if you take the translation away, what is left? You see? What is left is the peace that passes all understanding, which is also referred to as happiness. Happiness doesn't mean you're laughing all the time. No, you can actually be happy in the midst of a pain because you're not psychologically disturbed by it. And because there's not a psychological disturbance, that is happiness. You see? And sometimes there's laughing, and sometimes there's, all different kinds of textures of feelings and sensations. But all of them seems to be happening within what I am. And what I am is the peace. What I am is that which words cannot describe. This is what we're pointing to here, to the obvious. Right now, can you say you are not? Right now, can you say you don't exist? Right now, can you say you're not being? You cannot. The problem is that you think you're being something, and that something is a thought. You think you're existing as something, that something is a thought. You think you are something, that something is a thought. You see? You simply are. And then they teach you words to describe, what you think you are, and that's where the believing fragmentation comes up. Now, all that there is, which is the universal energy, seems to be fragmented by words. You see? but the word is not the thing. It's just a concept. Take the concepts away. They're useful for practical reasons, but don't give him the power that the mind has given to them. Just notice that life is. Rest in that. That's the resonance that you know because it's part of what you are. You can never not be. So that's how we're resonating here. Not conceptually, not with the mind. The resonance here is direct experience. You see? And that is what you will, that's how you will live your life. If for some reason in your script, in your life journey, you're supposed to not believe the content of the mind because you're not the doer. However, life brought you here. It brought us here together to remember this. So let's suggest that life is now using these instruments to recognize itself as that which is beyond words. Call it love, call it essence, call it oneness, unicity, absolute. Better yet, don't call it anything. Life simply is, you see? And this is the resonance that we're referring to here. It's not a belief, it's direct experience. And that cannot be ignored. It simply is. And well, this is the inspiration that came through this instrument. I hope it served. And as always, may peace permeate the mind so that love can be extended.